You are listening to the Booktrospective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Booktrospective. And this week we are doing Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby.
Yep.
I don't know why I want to say Crosby. I want there to be an R so bad. I think I even misspelled it with one of the flyer things. I don't know. Cosby. So, anyways, before we get into that though, Keely, how's your week been?
My week's been okay. The rest of the week is going to be pretty busy.
Good.
But
or not good. I don't know.
Little anxiety inducing, I think. I mean, not so much. I'm not usually this busy because tonight we're recording.
Yes.
Tomorrow we have book club.
That's true. Yeah.
Friday, Kendall and I are going out to a comedy show at Be Here Now with
cool.
Ray Toffer. So we're excited about that. And then Saturday, I have an author event here.
You do?
So, yeah, just a lot going on these next couple days.
I know. I feel the same way. We're recording today. I was pushing to get done because I was I really do want to record today because I was okay, if we don't do it today, I don't know what day we were going to do it.
Yeah,
so,
same. I was I don't know when we possibly...
Sunday was the only other day because we're busy. So, yeah, so we have book club tomorrow and so excited. Book club has grown so much.
Yeah.
So
there was 14, 15 people marked going to the...
I know. Normally we have 5 to 7. Mm-hmm. I say we. It's Keely's book club. I'm literally a tag along.
It's our book club.
It's all the people that go to book club. It's their book club. So it's great. And so we have book club, and then Friday I don't have anything that I can think of really. And then Saturday you have your event, which I'm gonna try. I said I was going, and then I remembered Saturday's also my friend's birthday. Oh, Friday's my mom's birthday.
Really?
Yeah. She's not going to do anything. But I did get her a present that she's been telling me she's the specific thing that she's been trying to steal from my house for the last several months, which is one of my heated blankets. No, you cannot have that. So I said, finally after Christmas, I was fine, I'll get you one for your birthday. So, of course, she sent me one on Amazon that was $80. Ma'am. She found the most expensive one. So I was okay. So I got her what I was going to get her. She can stop trying to steal mine. So that, what is today? Wednesday? Cameron has a basketball game tomorrow. You know what? My life is in shambles. I truly, I'm unwell. So, yeah. I feel and I was feeling after book club tomorrow, it would be all downhill. It's not. Oh my gosh. I live at a high level of stress though, so this is normal for me. And then, okay, so this is going to post Monday, which will be the 29th. But so by the time we record next time, hopefully, maybe, depending on the day of the week, I will also have listened to Crescent City 3. Ooh. Keely can't listen to it yet because she's not that far.
I know, I'm so upset.
I know. I literally on the way here, as soon as I finished this book 3 or 4 hours ago today. And so then I immediately went to a podcast. And so they were all my podcasts, fantasy podcasts are doing Crescent City. And I just was I can't wait to be back. I'm sad because it'll probably take her, rightfully so. It'll probably be at least a year before another book comes out. It's you get so excited when they come out, but then you have to wait 5,000 years. Yeah. I can't wait for you to catch up.
Yeah, I still haven't read
Frost
and Starlight.
That one's simple though. We do ACOWAR. Is that next week?
I think so.
I think ACOWAR is next week.
I think so.
Little plug for the end of the episode. But back to Sarah J. Maas. I'm so excited. And I just, not that I don't like taking notes for the podcast, but when I can just listen. My mom's I fly through books in a day. I'm yeah, that was me before I took notes. But I can't I love to just listen. I love the book club books because I don't take notes on them. So I just listen and absorb. Also, speaking of audiobooks, one thing about audiobooks and for all the people who say stuff about audiobooks is at least we know how to pronounce stuff because I will listen, and it's no shade to people who don't, but if I sometimes I'll listen to the audiobook and then I'll see somebody write for example, in Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, this is not a spoiler, but one of the cities is called Otterlin, but it's spelled like A-R, like Ardelin or something like that. I would never have like put that together. And that's most fantasy words. So like, at least when I listen to the audiobooks, I know how it's supposed to be pronounced.
Yeah, and I know that like very, very, very few. I've seen just a couple people like point out, and I don't even remember what ones they are, but they'll have like a pronunciation guide in the front of the book.
Sarah J. Maas has one, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I don't know, like I just, and like once I start saying it, that's just going to be what it is. So, like people argue about like Rhysand or Rhysand, which like, no, it's Rhysand. But Farah or Farah, like that's another, all of them, almost all of the names are like an argument. Like,
I am totally with you there. I started reading ACOTAR physically, and I'm like, I have no idea what some of these words are. So I'm getting the audiobook, and I really like the audiobooks too. So with all of them, I'll get the audiobook and also the physical book. And
we have to have 3 copies. You need a Kindle, an audiobook, and the real thing. Like, we're readers. So, okay, well, yeah, so that's what's going on. Very busy. Super excited to be busy, I guess. So, and it's not miserably disgusting. I mean, it is disgusting this week. It's raining, but it's 50 degrees.
I prefer rain over snow any day. So.
I know it's global warming, but I'm not upset. Like, I know I'm supposed to be upset about that, but I will take 50. So, okay.
Well, who knows? I mean, it's Indiana. It may snow in June.
It probably will. I would be. My birthday's in July. If it does anything in the summertime that's not sweltering heat and rain occasionally, I'm gonna melt. So, okay, well, the book again. So, Blacktop Wasteland. So obviously I asked Keely last week, is this a thriller? I guess it does fall in thriller category, but completely different than the other thrillers. And I enjoyed it. So, do you have the blurb?
I am pulling the blurb up right as we speak.
Okay.
All right. And, I did the audiobook, and I guess I would have figured out that it was Beauregard, but I don't know.
Beauregard. And they don't shorten it. I wrote Beau. I'm not typing out Beauregard. Beau. And I know he has a nickname, and I could have just said that, but I didn't, and so, I don't know, but, like, why don't you go by Beau? But anyways, Beauregard. It is so southern. Beauregard.
Yeah. Beauregard bug montage. Husband, father, honest car mechanic, but he was once known from North Carolina to the beaches of Florida as the best getaway driver on the East Coast, just like his father who disappeared many years ago. After a series of financial calamities worsened by the racial prejudices of the small town he lives in, Bug reluctantly takes part in a daring diamond heist to solve his many troubles. And to go straight once and for all. Okay. And to go straight for once and for all. However, when it goes horrifically wrong, he's sucked into a grimy underworld which threatens everything and everyone he holds dear.
Ooh. Okay. So, if you could describe this book in one word, I didn't prepare either, so you can give me the look.
I tried to prepare as a thing.
Okay.
I have been thinking over words all day, and none of them have really seemed to really capture what this book is. Honestly, I was trying to go something that was like kind of a little funny in terms of, getaway driver, and I was like fast or what was the other one? Speedy. But I just don't feel like they really encapsulated,
I know. It is like there's a lot to this.
Yeah.
To this book. Yeah. I was going to say for me it's like I was going to say devastating. Because it is it just is So, but yeah.
I would say it is, I have one that kind of popped in kind of wiggle its way in. It is... Oh, God.
It's hard.
A Mess.
Yeah. A Mess is good. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Calamity.
Simple enough. Yeah.
Take the word from the blurb. Calamity. Chaos. Mm-hmm. Okay, so general summary. This book is set in Virginia in 2012. And Beauregard is like a middle-aged black man. They live in the South, again, Virginia. It's so funny because this book makes me feel like it's 1970 or like 60 or something the whole time, even though it's not like they have cell phones and stuff. But he comes from a troubled past, and he has this really big connection to his dad, who is no longer with him in one way or another. His mom's in a nursing home. He's got a wife. He's got 2 sons with that wife. He also has a daughter from his teenage years, and he has a business, and now like everything, like we know how that is, like, you know, your car light comes on, your furnace stops working, like that's basically like everything in his life is going wrong at the same time. And he has come from a troubled past. He has tried to walk the straight and narrow, but when all else fails, like, what do you do? He's like on the verge of losing everything. So he's like, I'm just gonna do this quick job with this guy. Like, he knows the guy's like kind of like, I don't want to even say shady at this point. Like, he's just kind of like the guy from around the way that's like always into stuff. But he's like, okay, I'm going to do this. But of course, like, they do this job and it becomes a humongous thing that they were not prepared for. And that causes all of his family to be dragged into it. And it brings up a lot of deep-rooted issues that he has with his parents, with his own like personal like parenting style, with his wife. And at the end, it's just all like, he's just basically kind of like damned if he does, damned if he don't kind of thing, willing to kind of risk it all, still trying to be a good person at the end of it all. But we just don't know. Like, we don't know what that is. Like, his back is up against the wall, and I can't say that he gets away from the wall at the end of this book. So, really, without spoiling it, I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's not a thriller. It's not Verity. It's not, it's not Riley Sager. It's not that, but it is like, it is fast paced. It's like, it's Fast and the Furious, but with like more seriousness to it.
Yeah.
I guess Fast and the Furious movies have like relationships, and it just feels deeper than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
more personal, high stakes, I feel like.
Yeah, and there's just, I don't know. Like, I haven't watched Fast and Furious in a million years, and I haven't watched since Paul Walker died. Rest in peace. But like, I don't remember it being like they were doing this because they were like on their last hope or anything. Like, that's just kind of what this is like. I would never have done this if I absolutely didn't have to. Yeah. And it just like, dang, like I like that's like throughout the whole book. I'm just like, dang.
Kind of like what one bad decision that you have to make. I mean,
yeah, like you don't have a choice. It's
right.
It's like worse and worse, more worse. Yeah. Like there's no good option.
Mm-hmm. So kind of one bad decision snowballs out of control.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and that's just what it is, and it's just like, like. You just hate that because I like the character, or I like some of the other characters, and you do just hate that. Like, dang, like, you know, you just meet those people in life too. It's just like they cannot catch a break.
Yeah,
and that's literally even when they've like tried and had good intentions always. So yeah, so that's kind of like the general spoiler-free summary. So if you have not read this book or you do not want to be spoiled, then this is your notice to pause. Come back and listen to it later. If not, let's go ahead and jump into this book. So, again, this takes place in Virginia. They call it Shepherd's Corner, Virginia. Well, at least that's where it starts out. There's also, like, there's other cities. I really didn't write down the names. They're basically little, not even cities, they're towns, honestly. And it's 2012. So, Beauregard, his nickname is Bug. I wrote Beau in my notes, so one of those names is what you're going to hear. But he is basically, it's nighttime. He's at a street race with a bunch of guys. He works at a garage. At this point, I didn't realize it was his garage just yet. And like at this point, I didn't realize how old this guy was. Like it took me a little bit to like realize. And basically, he's short $800 on his rent because his son needed glasses. So he basically was like, "Do I buy my kid glasses or do I pay my rent?" And so he had to buy his youngest child some glasses. So he's at this street race to try to win back the money he needs. And he's racing a guy named Warren, and he's betting the entire like $1,000 that he has. Like that's all he's got left. And basically the area that they are racing in is abandoned, and he calls it a Blacktop Wasteland. So like that's where they do races. And he kind of starts to tell us about his dad a little bit. And basically like something that he's learned is that if you're in a race, you got to drive like you're not scared to drive. You got to drive like you stole it in order to win. Because when he starts to race with Warren like, obviously they both like their cars, but like he don't want to get his car messed up. And Bug's like, you got to drive like you stole it. Like you're trying to get out of there. And we learn like, I mean, he's just an amazing, like, not even just racer, like mechanic. Like he's like very intelligent, super like smart when it comes to this, like to like building and rebuilding and cars and all of that. So the car he is driving, I don't know if he says it here, but it actually was his dad's car. Dang, I can't remember what they call it. What does he call it? What is it?
Oh.
They say it all the time, but I don't think I wrote it down one time.
Like
what type of car it was. That's going to bother me. I have no idea. I can't remember. But it's like
it wasn't like steamer or something, was it?
No, it's something with an ER on the end. Yeah. I didn't write it down.
Smoker? No. I don't know.
I know. I should, like, to me, like, sometimes when I'm taking notes, I'm like, is this important?
Yeah, because he does mention it, like,
all the time. Like, that's what they refer to the car as. It's not like a name. It's just, I don't even know if it's officially the type of car, but it's basically like one of those, like, metal, like an old school car, like when they used to make them out of like metal, like heavy car.
Kind of like when somebody is like, oh yeah, my car's a beater. Like just like something that you. I can't think of it. It's definitely something.
Yeah, I can't remember either. So he basically says like his dad taught him. He said his dad's a ghost without a grave, and he doesn't want to end up like him. And we learned that basically his dad went missing or like left. He didn't really go missing. He left town and they've never heard from him or seen him again. And that was when he was a teenager. So he assumes his dad's dead. So he wins this race and he like pulls up to a gas station. His cousin's there and like some other guys that basically are monitoring this race to make sure it's fair or whatever. And he pulls up to the like thing and Warren catches up and he's like basically like, you cheated. And everyone's like, he did not cheat. And so his cousin is there. His name is Kelvin. And he says like, come on, let's just go, Bug. And Beauregard's like, he's like, no, not till he takes it back. And he's like, I'm not a cheater. Like, he's like, you're not going to disrespect me like that, basically. And people are like, you know, telling Warren like, oh, don't give in to him, you know, whatever. So they're having this face off. All of a sudden they notice that there's these cops. So they come up and they're like, hey, like, and they're down south and there is lots of racism and throughout this book. So these are white cops and they're basically like, we don't see any NASCAR sign. You're like, what you boys out here doing? And they're like, we know this wasn't like a sanctioned race. And so they're basically like line them up and they check all their IDs. They basically say like, some of y'all have warrants, some of y'all don't. So we're not going to take y'all to jail, but we want you to pay the racing tax. And there isn't a racing tax. Like they just made that up. And so one of them is like, what is the racing tax? And he like, one of the cops pulls the gun out, puts it to his head, and is like, whatever's in your pockets, or you can experience police brutality. So Bug is like, you're going to take me to jail. Because I'm not, he's like, I'm not giving you this money. He's like, I had $1,000. He just got the money from Warren that he won in the race. Like, I need every last bit of this money. And like, you just going to take me to jail. Like, and I feel him like, you want to take me to jail. Like that's like when okay, this is a funny story about my fiance, and honestly I feel the same thoughts. So when he was in high school, sorry Josh, I'm telling your story. When he was in high school, he stole his mom's car, kind of like he went to like pick up his brother and he wrecked it. And he found out after this that this car was going to be his. So so they take him to the hospital because his brother got hurt. And they're like, okay, well, we have to call your mom. He's like, no, just take me to jail. He's like, just please take me to jail. They were like, no, like, we're going to call your mom. He's like, please, just take me to jail, please. It's literally the funniest story when he tells it. And like, this is like the exact same sentiments. Like, I'll just take the jail consequences, please. So the cop is like, do you want to commit suicide by cop? And he says, take me to jail, but you can't take my money. But then they basically like, they're like, oh, aren't these your friends? And he's like, no. But then Kelvin says something and they end up realizing like, okay, there's somebody out here you care about. So basically they kind of like hint that if you don't do what we're wanting, like we'll hurt him because obviously like you're strong-willed or whatever. So he gives in. And so they all end up leaving, and the cops like are like, Warren, what's wrong with your car? Because he's like, well, my car won't start or whatever. So Bo and Kelvin get in the car. Sorry, I'm switching names again. But they get in the car, and he's like, wherever they're going is not the direction that's back home. And so Kelvin's like, you know, where are you going? Because they're headed toward like bars, and he's like, you don't have any money. Like, obviously they just took all your money. And he's like, those were not real cops. He's like, they knew his name. And he goes, I was looking at them and they didn't have any like official police or sheriff like insignia on their uniforms. And we'll learn that like Beauregard is super observant. He is very observant. He's like, those are not cops. And so he's like, Warren was in on it and he stayed behind to get a cut of the money. And he said the guns that they were using also weren't like official police guns anymore. Those were older versions. And he said that basically Warren probably was trying to accuse him of cheating to stall him out to make sure that his friends got there on time. And so they could do the whole scheme or whatever. And Warren is also like the only one from that area. So it makes sense that he would be in on it. So Bo like knows that Warren's going to want to celebrate and probably go to a bar nearby, which is why he went that way. And his cousin's like, okay, well, I don't see him. Like, you think he's coming, but then he passes by them. So they follow him to this bar, and Bo parks up the street and grabs like a wrench out of his car, like one of those like car wrenches or whatever. And he tells his cousin to stay in the car, and Kelvin's like, don't kill him. And he's like, basically doesn't respond. So he goes and sees Warren. He's like peeing next to his car behind the, like next to the bar or something like that. And he like runs up behind him and cracks him over the head with this wrench, like knocks him out. He's bleeding, and he like puts the wrench in his mouth and basically is like, I know that you like ran a game on me. Those are fake cops. And he's like, I truly don't care about any of that, but I need my money back. And he's like, if you make any noise, like I'm gonna break your jaw. Like he is no, like it went from 0 to 60 so quick. I was not expecting him to be like a full thug.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, okay. Like I don't, okay, Bo. Like my apologies, sir. Like, so he moves the wrench, and Warren is like, you know, it's in my back pocket, and he pulls the money out, and there's only $750. And he's like, Warren's like, yeah, the 1,000 I gave you was fake. Oh, okay. You were trying to die. And so basically $750 was all the cut that he got anyways. So he stomps down on Warren's ankle and like breaks it. And also when he hit him, like he hit him so hard, like he broke his clavicles. Oh, that makes me sick. And he's like, take it back. And he's like, what? Like, dude, like, what? He's like, no, like, you're going to take back what you said. So he does. He literally has, like, peed his pants, Warren has. And he's like, you're not, like, you didn't cheat. Like, whatever. Oh, sorry, guys. I thought my phone was silent. So Bo goes home, and he goes back home with Kelvin, but they go to the garage first that he owns. He doesn't go to his house. And they have some beers. And they're like, maybe the city's too small for 2 mechanics. And we learn that there's another mechanic shop called Precision or something like that. Mm-hmm. And basically, that's why he doesn't have any rent money, is because all his business has started going to this new company. And his landlord won't give him an extension on the rent anymore. Kelvin basically leaves to go with a girl. We learn that Kelvin, like, he's got women. That's just basically his thing. And Bo starts thinking just about all his problems. So basically he has a loan with the bank, and he's actually trying to buy this building all the way out. And he's actually really close to paying it off, but he's also very behind on this like final payment. So like, of course, the bank guy wants him to refinance, and he's like, okay, but then I'll just have to start paying all over again. And he doesn't want to do that. His lot is like also next to like a developer, and like basically it's like in a good spot. Like he doesn't want to lose this building. And so he heads home. He lives in a decent trailer with his wife. Her name is Kia, and she's up. So he tells her like basically kind of what happened. And she asks if he's thinking about going to his Uncle Booney, which Kelvin had also mentioned. And Booney basically, like, he has shady dealings. And like in the past, when I think Bo has like been involved in stuff, Booney, like, he can get him hooked up basically. And he's like talking to Kia about this, and Kia's like, you're lucky that you like got out. And like, it's just like a known phrase. Like, people always say, like, if you're in the game or whatever, like, you can't get out. Like, you don't get out. And that's kind of what they're talking about. So we learned that they've been together since they were like 17, 18. They got married when they were around 23. And on top of like their youngest son just now getting his glasses, the other son probably needs braces. And we learned that she works at a hotel. She's like, well, maybe I can pick up at the hotel. And then the duster. I did write it down.
Yeah.
I was like, she mentioned selling his dad's car, and they call it the duster. And he's like, absolutely not, because like that is his like only thing to remember his dad by. He's like, I'll do it. And she's like, you could probably get $20,000 for that car, and he refuses to sell it. We learned that he has a daughter that he had before he was with Kia, and her name is Ariel. And then, and she's actually named after Little Mermaid. And then they have two sons, like Javon and Darren. And he doesn't let the boys come to the repair shop because, like I said, with the whole like getting out thing, he knows that at any time someone from his past may just show up, and he doesn't want them to be caught up in like that lifestyle. He also gets a call the next day about his mom. So his mom's at a nursing home, and they basically say there's an issue with her Medicaid. And he thinks how, like, when he was a kid, basically his only dream was to be able to live in a house like he does now, like to basically have a roof and like running water. And that was like, that's sad, like, because that's such a basic human need, and that was his whole dream. And he wished that he could live in a place also where like everyone had their own room, which they do now. And he thinks of how he used to wish to see his dad again because his dad went missing. So even though he said to Kia he wasn't going to go see Uncle Booney, that's where he goes the next day. And his uncle asks if he's asking for work, and he says yes. But his uncle's like, well, things are dry over here. Like, I don't have anything for you. And he asks his uncle if he thinks his dad will come back one day. And his uncle basically says, no, that's not his way. And then he tells him like how much he like looks like him or reminds him of that. We learned that his mom has cancer, and that's basically one of the reasons that she's in this facility, because he's talking to his uncle about it. And Bug basically says, like, well, let me know if anything comes up. And Booney doesn't really want to. Like, he doesn't want to bring him back into that life. He cares about him. And Bug, is really just thinking, like, about how his sons are, like, always growing. They always need, we know how, like, having kids are. They always need something. His daughter she was supposed to graduate, and for whatever reason, she has to, like, repeat in the summer. So she's supposed to graduate this summer. His wife wants, like, a real house with the actual foundation because they live in kind of like a trailer. And he's 1 month from losing the shop. So, like, again, everything is piling up all at the same time. And this is when I finally decided to write down that Bug was his nickname, because I was, like, refusing to do it. And I'm like, okay, everyone calls this man Bug. So Bug, Beauregard, you get it. So he goes back into, like, because Uncle Booney lives, like, out somewhere. So he goes back into town, and Kelvin's there waiting for him. He was, like, across the street at the 7-Eleven, and Kelvin went ahead and, like, started working at the shop. And so while he's working, waiting on Bug to come back, a white man shows up looking for him and says that the man says, my brother Ronnie Sessions is looking for him, and he wants to, like, make up for something that's happened in the past and might have to work for him. And Kelvin says that, like, Ronnie is basically known for stealing and had screwed Bug over on a job before. So while this is all going on, Bo, I don't know what to call him. I feel like it's confusing. I don't know. So he goes to the nursing home to check on his mom. And this was so funny to me because he's like, it's so nice on the outside, but as soon as you step in, it like smells like pee. And I literally, as a nurse, always like think about like how depressing nursing homes is. I don't care how nice or whatever the facility is. Like they're all like, even if you work, like I almost prefer to work at like crappy nursing homes because they like are what they are. But like the nicer ones are the exact same way. They just pretend to be something nice. And like, that was just funny to me because that's so true. Like it's exactly that. And so he goes in there, he assumes they're kicking his mom out because of some kind of payment issue. And I put like, Bo is eating this lady up because he was, because she's like, there's something wrong with your mom's Medicaid. He was like, there ain't nothing wrong with her Medicaid. Like, so quit like playing. He was like, just be straight. Like, please. Like, he literally, because she was trying to be indirect, and I can't stand that either. Like, please just get to the point.
She was like, there was a discrepancy. And he's like, no, there was
Yeah, he's like,
not.
there's no discrepancy. I was like, yeah, he ate her up real quick. I was like, oh, I love him. And so basically what we find out, and this is true in real life. So when you apply for Medicaid, you have to declare like literally every dollar you have under your pillow. And his mom has a life insurance policy that she did not declare. So by having that policy, that increased her income and that makes her unable to qualify for the Medicaid. So they haven't paid in like 2 months or like weeks or something like that. And so even though this policy is only worth $15,000, so if she cashed it out, it would only be worth $15,000. That like put her over. And so now she owes the nursing home $48,000. So he needed $800. Now he needs like 49,000 something. Like, and the lady basically seems happy because she doesn't like his mom, because we learned like she's a pistol. She is rightful. And so she's like happy to like throw her out. And his mom doesn't want to cancel the policy. So basically like, his mom is saying like, oh, that's for my grandkids. But he knows like his mom doesn't really like Kia and like only tolerates his kids. And so it's like more like, that's basically like the last little bit of control that she has. And that's why she doesn't want to cancel the policy. So he goes to see his mom. She is down there fussing and cussing. She was like, I peed on myself. She was incontinent. She's like yelling at the CNA. If you, I get it because I was a CNA. If you've been a CNA, or you are currently, you know. And so like, she's like, y'all were taking too long. Y'all out there on y'all phones, whatever. She is eating them up too. And so the CNA is like, she says, I'm sorry, we're short. And Ella says, I'm sorry, I'll try to die quietly. I swear I've had this lady. This has been my patient. I know for a fact. You know what? Actually, what I put in here was, I said, whoo, this is Elmira. That, I swear on cheese and crackers, this is my great grandma reincarnated. Because that was her. Like, that was her. If anybody comes up to me on the street and they know my great grandma, like she's been dead almost all my life, they're like, yeah, she was something else. That's this lady. And her name is Ella. So Bo goes in there and she's like, she does of course, like the old lady thing. You're too skinny. Your wife can't cook. And she literally has oxygen. She's not wearing it. She like puts it up to her nose and like breathes it in. But then she's also trying to smoke cigarettes. You gonna blow us all away in here. And so he basically like tells us how his mom is like, she's still beautiful, but she always like was super beautiful. And she basically like, she's a pistol, but she always got away with everything with everyone except for his dad. And like the cancer has taken, like it took her hair first, and she has a neck stoma. So she's had a trach. Those are my, like, that's my weakness. I hate trachs. Oh my gosh. I will deal with them. I'll take care of them, but whew, please no. But she doesn't seem to have it. She talks and stuff, so hers is healed and everything. And so she doesn't care about the balance, and she says, you and Big Booty don't want me. And he's like, I told you that you could live with us when all this happened, but like now she's so far like into her needs. Like he's like, we actually can't take care of you now, so you need to be at this facility. And so she starts crying and says this is all because his daddy left and couldn't take care of his responsibilities. And Bug's like, okay, but he left me too, and she's just not listening. So he ends up leaving. He goes to work, and Kelvin tells him about Ronnie. And so we learn that basically Bug and Ronnie were supposed to steal this real nice racehorse like years ago or whatever. And Bug had even like, he basically made an exact replica of the like, what do they call that? Whatever the carriage thing, the thing that you put the horses in when you drive. Whatever that is. Trailer. The horse trailer. He had made an exact replica of the trailer, like even put like a dent in it, like exactly where the dent was. And they basically like had put sandbags or something in it. So they swapped it at this like gas station or whatever. But apparently this horse needed like diabetic medication or something. Mm-hmm. And so by the time they from the time they stole it till they got wherever they were supposed to take it, the horse had died. So, and he blamed Ronnie for that. So yeah. And Bo calls Kia and he's like, I'm off early, but we find out so is she. They wouldn't let her work over. So she's like, oh, I'm at home. I got the boys, but there's 2 white men at the house waiting for him. And he's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And then he like grabs his gun. So we learn he's got guns all over the house. He's always got a gun on him. Like he's paranoid and he stays ready. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. and we learn that it's Ronnie and his brother. And we learn that his brother's name is Reggie. So Reggie and Ronnie. So Bug gets home and like he goes, Kia is in the housewife with the kid. So they're on the porch or whatever. And he like goes up to shake Ronnie's hand, and he has like his gun like behind him. And so he literally shakes his hand and at the same time pulls a gun to his stomach and is like, why are you here? And he's like, you know, sorry, Bug, I didn't know about the horse having diabetes. And he's like, I don't want any harm. And he's like, you need to leave. He's like, I don't bring this stuff around my family or my boys. And Ronnie's just like, please hear me out, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I got a big job for us. And so Bug's like, okay, meet me at the shop in 30 minutes. And but he's like, you know, I lost over $3,000 on that last job, so this job better make up for that plus more. And he's like, if you ever come to my house again, I'll shoot first, so don't come back here. So he goes inside, he tells Kia like about it, what his mom and all that thing, and he's like, he says like, they were telling me about a job, and she's like, no, you know, don't worry about your mom owing that money, that's your mom's problem. And she's like, you don't know what it's like for me to not know if you're coming home because you're doing these kind of things, and like just constantly worrying like, is this the last time I'm going to see you? And she's like, sell the car. He says no. And she says, you treat your dad like a saint when everybody knows he was a snitch. And then he like, that pisses him off. And so he just like kind of storms out. We switch to like, this book kind of has different POVs. It's kind of weird how they do it. So we switch to Ronnie for a little bit. And he says like, basically, there's a girl that he like hooks up with, kind of on and off with, that works at a jewelry store. Her name's Jenny. And the manager is a lesbian, and the manager likes her. So basically she was like trying to like sweet talk her, and we find out that there's a shipment of diamonds, raw uncut diamonds that aren't on like the store's manifest that are going to be coming in. And these diamonds are worth $500,000. So he tells Bug like, we could get $250,000 to split 3 ways. And like Bug's like, no, y'all can get, so 3 ways would be $83,000. And he's like, no, y'all can get $83,000. Y'all owe me 87. He's like 87, 100, and like whatever the exact amount is every single time he tells them.
He's like a math, like,
yeah, he ain't forgot.
Math pro.
You're not gonna miss $1 on Bug. Like, he knows. So Ronnie's like, I want to do it next week, and he's also like, he's super smart. So Bug's like, no, like next week is the 4th of July. There's going to be traffic. And he's like, I need like a month to like, he wants to map it out. Like, I mean, he gets so in depth about this job. Like he's like across the street to see like what the vantage points are. He's like, he goes and like maps out the routes a couple times, like sees how far the police are. Like he is Ocean's 11, like on steroids. Like it is very detailed. So Ronnie's like, at the most, we have 3 weeks before the buyer's gone. The buyer's in DC. And so he needs him, like, he's like, Bug, you're the best driver, like, that we know. And so Bug's like, I'll think about it. He tells him to get a burner phone and says, call the shop tomorrow at noon. So when Bug is leaving the shop after all of this, he passes this gas station and he sees there's a pink Ford Mustang. And so he, like, whips around and pulls into the gas station. So as he's pulling up, he notices that like the girl's not in the car, but there's a man with braids and a teardrop tattoo. I love this entire interaction. And he's like, okay, that doesn't mean that she's not like around. And he goes up to the car. He's looking at the guy. He's like, this tattoo is like too clean. He's like, this tattoo is too clean. So he's like, I know he ain't been like to prison or nothing. Like, this is not a real teardrop tattoo. And so he goes up to the guy in the car. The guy's like, what do you want, old man? And he's like, where's the girl? And he's like, why are you asking about my girl? And he's like, because I'm her daddy. He's like, oh, she's in the store with her fine self.
Like, don't talk about my daughter like that in front of me. Thank you very much.
And he's like, what's your name? He says, Lil Rip. Literally, like, I think last night I was talking to Josh about somebody and he called them by their nickname. And I just bust out laughing. I said, that is not his name. What is his government name? I cannot stand those nicknames. Like, I swear. So he looks at Lil Rip and he goes, no, what's the name your mama calls you when she gets mad? And he's like, William. And he says, William, be nice to my girl, and shakes his hand. But then he like has a vice grip on his hand and he says, if she ever tells me you give her problems, you and me will have problems. And like Rip like winces. And so he goes in the store to see Ariel. And there it goes. And so he goes in the store to see Ariel, and she's like getting ready to like check out at the counter or something like that. And she seems upset. Or no, she like barely even acknowledges that her dad's in there. And he's like, I met Lil Rip. And she says like, she just like barely says anything. And she's like, I drew the tattoo on with eyeliner. So like, yeah, he's a fraud. And she seems upset, and she's basically like, I'm stupid, like, because I couldn't graduate with the rest of the class. And we learned that she lives with her mom. Her mom is white. Her grandparent, like her whole other family is. And they're also pretty racist. And her mom's like a drug and alcohol abuser. Her family's super poor. And like, she's been dealing with a lot of stuff with her mom, which is probably why she didn't graduate. But of course they were like, oh, like, deal with it. You still should have graduated. And so her mom also doesn't want to co-sign for her to get loans to go to college. So her dad's like, just focus on getting a degree. And he offers to do it. And she's like, well, Kia probably like won't like that or whatever. Cause like we got that little issue. I'm sure there's tension there. And like also her family kind of tries to pretend, cause she's like probably like white passing. And so like they kind of like try to pretend like she's not half black. And she's basically like, I'm just going to get a job. Like, I won't go to school. I'll just get a job and maybe I can enroll like in the next semester. And he thinks about like how he failed her by being 17 when he had her. He was fresh out of juvie when she was born. Apparently, like at one point in time, he beat up her uncle. Her grandma had a restraining order out against him. And then like when he got married to Kia, he did try to get custody, but the judge like basically looked at his record and was like, absolutely not. And he's never told her any of this. And so they don't have like a close relationship at all. And he knows that she's just saying she'll get a job because like that she like, she doesn't have anything else to do. And basically like it's at this exact moment, even though he never admitted to himself, that he decided that he was going to do whatever Ronnie wanted him to do. So we switch over to Ronnie. He's with his brother Reggie, and they had like went to a club. They're always bringing girls home. I know this house is nasty, and like everything about them is nasty and disgusting. I know it is, and like they get like, I don't want to say they get nasty and disgusting girls, but like if you read this, like it's just like ugh.
Like I could picture
raunchy.
like what their house looks like, and just like
I can smell it.
Yeah,
I can smell it, and it's raunchy. Like it's nasty. So they bring this girl home, and they like share the girls like. And in my mind, and I want to say that he said, like, these are, like, big guys. So many thoughts. So many images in my brain. I don't even want to say it anymore. So we learned that, like, Ronnie has just gotten out of prison not too long ago. He did a job right after. He had a good amount of money, but, like, Ronnie can't keep money. Like, he blew it on gambling. Now there's, like, a loan shark out to get him, and he basically has 30 days to pay it before the guy's going to come and get him. And, like, he basically was like, he was going to take him to the farm and torture him, basically. So they go to this club called the Wonderland, and he, like, tried to find another driver, but nobody's going to be as good as Bug. So, yeah. So that's basically what it is. Reggie is pretty worthless. Like, he's bad on drugs, and he's on disability. But surprisingly, Reggie did remember to get the burner phone because he's like, okay, are you going to call Bug? And he's like, well, I never got the phone. He's like, oh, I got the phone. And Ronnie doesn't even remember when they stopped at a gas station to get the phone. So the drugs are just flowing. So, and then they're funny too because like Reggie's like, well, you just have to charge it. And he's like, no, I have to charge a brand new phone. Who would have thought? So he goes out to the car and calls Bug, and Bug's basically like, yeah, I'll do the job. So they plan to meet, and like he's talking to him in code, and like Ronnie is so like how, like he's a horrible thief, like horrible criminal.
Yeah.
He is a C- criminal. And so they basically plan to meet at 7:00 at Reggie's trailer or whatever. And like Bug tells him like, get rid of the phone. And then, so he trashes the phone, and this made no sense because why did you make all these phone calls after you trash the phone? Like, why didn't you do that first? But he calls this guy named Quan. He's like another black guy. And he calls Jenny, which is the girl. And Jenny says, like, well, maybe we should, like, call it off. She's nervous about doing the job. And he's like, why? Like, it's going to be fine. And we learned that he actually lied to Bug. So he told him it was $500,000 worth of diamonds. It's $1.5 million. Already scheming and scheming. Mm-hmm. Back to Bug. He is, like, trying to talk to Kia. She's still pissed, rightfully so. And he's trying to talk to her, but she doesn't want him doing the job, and he's still planning on going. So he heads down there. When he gets to the trailer, to Reggie's trailer, the girl from last night is still there, and he's like, no games. He's like, you gotta go. You're not doing the job. You gotta get out of here. And he gives them 3 rules. He's like, in order for me to agree to this, number 1, don't talk to anyone else except for who already knows about it and who's like in this room. Number 2, after this is over, stay away from each other. Like, we're not going out to dinner like the next night. Like, we should never be seen together after that. And then number 3, the day it happens, he wants everybody else to be sober. Like, he doesn't do drugs or anything. So he's like, all y'all need to be sober the day of the job. They all agree. And they're like, oh, like, everybody's like, oh, like, you're being so serious about this.
It is serious.
Like, we're committing a serious crime. And I literally said, this is giving me Remember the Titans vibe when he's like, you fumble a pass, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, like, Denzel said. He's like, you walk a mile. And I was
oh my God, I love that movie.
Yeah, I was like, that's what it literally, like, that's exactly the vibes I got. So he starts, like, asking all those logistical questions, like I said, like, you know, like, does she have the code? Like, all these things. And Ronnie's like, Ronnie has no information. And Jenny couldn't come that night because she had to work. So Ronnie's like, you know, we'll just get the diamonds and get out. And Bug's like, no, like, you need to grab other stuff because obviously it's going to look targeted if you go in there and grab exactly what you're looking for. So Quan, the other guy, he's like, he's just ready to shoot everybody. I'm like, yeah, you should have stayed home. This was such a red flag. And Bug's like, he tells Quan, you're like a yapping little dog that basically talks a lot of shit and like will pee your pants when something happens. And he tells everyone, like, if this goes wrong, we're looking at 3 years to life, and that's if someone doesn't get hurt. So, like, obviously there's probably going to be people in the store. Like, they're talking about shooting people. Like, all kinds of things could happen. So he goes home and he cuddles up next to Kia that night. And, you know, she doesn't know that he's been off plotting. We switch over to Jenny, which is the girl at the jewelry store. And Ronnie wakes her up with a text saying rock and roll. Which, also, Ronnie is covered in tattoos, all of Elvis. So basically, like, it's like he has a sleeve of, no, he has 2, they're on both arms. One arm, like, it starts with young Elvis, and then it works up to, like, highlight Elvis. I don't know much about Elvis. And then the other arm, he has, like, old fat Elvis, like, in the white suit. His obsession. So, like, his thing is, like, rock and roll. Like, he says it all the time. That's his, like, catchphrase. And she's like, don't text me stuff like that. What if the police look at my phone? You idiot. And he asks her if she has the alarm code, and she does. Bug is getting ready to leave home. He's still laying with Kia, and she tells him, like, she's going to be working late, so he needs to pick up the kids. He drives past this place, which is the old Tasty Freeze, and that was the place that he had last seen, the last day that he had seen his dad. And so basically there's a rumor that there was still blood all over the pavement that they could never get up, and we'll learn about that later. He basically goes and, like, cases out the jewelers. It's in a shopping center. It's, like, at the end of the, like, buildings near the exit. There's police, so he, like, sees all that. He looks at the businesses across the street, the highway route, and, like, how long it's going to take to get away. And when he's leaving from there, he passes by, like, there's construction. And then there's, like, a black guy outside of his car, like, waving people down. No one's stopping. And he's like, crap, like, I shouldn't stop, but, like, I have to. So he stops. There's a white woman in the car, and she's in labor. And so the guy's like, I don't have any money. Like, my car just stopped. My wife's in labor. And can you give me a ride? And the hospital's 35 minutes away. Bug gets him there in 18. And the man asks, like, what's your name? We should name the baby after you. Obviously, he doesn't want to give the name because he's in the area. So he gives them his dad's name, which was Anthony. And he thinks back to, like, kind of thinking back, reflecting on when his dad told him he was getting ready to leave and he was headed to California. Now, after that, he goes to the shop. He's talking to Kelvin, and Kelvin's talking about getting a side job just because they've been so slow. And then he goes out to see Booney again, and he tells Booney, like, he needs a car with a good frame for this job. And his uncle basically asks, like, does this have something to do with Ronnie? Like, he tells him, he's asking without telling him about the job. And he's like, basically, Ronnie had come in recently with, like, some copper and mulch. And he like, had been stealing again. And basically, Ronnie had told him, like, he had a job in the works and that he'd never have to work again. And so now Bug is there asking for a car. And Booney's like, you know, it was Bug's dad who helped him stop, like, being involved like that. And he really just wants him to, like, to think about his family. Like, he really doesn't want him to be involved in this life anymore. We go over to Ronnie and Reggie. Bug is supposed to be meeting with them, and he meets up with them. He gives them some guns, and he heads into work. And Bug hates the fact that, like, he feels good when he's doing a job, even though he knows, like, it's wrong. And he and Kelvin go to a bar, and they see a man named Melvin. And we learn that Melvin's father was ran over by Bug. And, like, Melvin seems, like, shaky. So, something there, too. We go at some point in time, Bug does tell Kia about the job, and she's just basically like, don't get killed and don't get caught. And so he's getting ready to leave for that. He gives her a kiss. He says he won't. He kisses the boys, and he's basically got his car now that he got for Uncle Booney. He's remade it, and he heads to Reggie's. And so he gets there, and Quan and Ronnie come out. They're dressed for the job, and so they get ready to go. So we switch over to Ronnie, and he's like, he feels like he's in a movie. We find out he did 2 lines of coke that morning and realized it was a mistake. And I said, what did he tell you? Like, what did he say? Don't do any drugs.
Right.
So he goes in the store with his gun. The store, there's Jenny. It's the lesbian manager that is not supposed to be there that day. And there's a black guy in there as well. And he, basically, and Quan goes in with him, and he grabs Jenny, and the manager, jumps up and is like, don't touch her, and he's like, I don't really like to hit women. I'd highly, you're a feminist. And so he slaps her, and Jenny is basically like, yeah, the manager switched shifts, because Llewellyn is this manager's name, and she's not supposed to be there. And so Jenny goes back there and she's putting in the code. It's not working, but it's just because the door is super heavy on the safe. So he gets it open and he grabs the cash that's in there, and then he grabs this brown box that's like a necklace size box, and it's literally filled with diamonds. So he heads back out to the front and he sees that Llewellyn, the manager, is now pointing a gun at Quan, and he shoots at her. She shoots and she's falling, and she's still shooting. The other guy that was in there, the other black guy that just happened to be in there, he tries to run, and then Quan basically shoots him and he drops down. And Ronnie grabs him and they run for it and get to the Buick that Bug has, and they take off. And I was like, I bet this girl's gonna tell. I think this girl's gonna tell, but we'll see. So they start driving. Of course, the cops are coming because there was gunshots and all this stuff going on. And Quan is wiping his face, and it's has the man's blood on him, and he throws up in the car. And I said, exactly. You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Yep.
And Bug's not surprised that the cops are there. He heard the gunshots, and he says they're close enough to ram the car, but he's souped up this car extra special. He's considering jumping a bridge and or a break in the construction, and they're on an overpass. And he tells the guys to put on their neck pillows. It's Dukes of Hazzard or something in here. So he slams the car into reverse, and then in reverse, he slams in gas. He slams off this overpass, and they fall 25 feet to the ground on this dirt. But he had reinforced the shop. I don't know cars. So he reinforced all these things so that they could do all of this. And then the cops, one of them tries to stop, but then the one behind them crashes into the other one, and they just fall off the overpass. And Ronnie's like, I think I shit my pants. He probably did. He's disgusting. So they drive off. They get away. They get to a hiding spot. And they put their clothes and everything in the car. And they basically, get the car to drive into a lake. So that car's gone. Also, I didn't mention this. Uncle Booney, so I kind of have talked a little bit about it. Where he lives is kind of like a scrapyard. And he has these machines that, you guys seen, at the, what do they call it? The junkyard, where they, smash the cars. Yeah, he basically has those. So that's why he's able to get, and people bring all kinds of stuff out there, scrap metal and stuff like that. That's why Bug was able to get a car from him in the first place. So they are they had a car parked wherever this hiding spot was. So, but they're only going to take the back roads. They see a trooper pass, but obviously they got rid of the car, so they're not looking for them. And it takes them 3 hours to get home because they take this all the back roads. And he's like, so what happened? Because I heard gunshots. And Ronnie says that the manager pulled a gun. Well, Bug's like, okay, but how was the manager able to get a gun, Quan? You were in there. And Quan starts talking. He's like, it doesn't matter. But his words are all slurred, and Bug slaps him. And he's like, you're messed up. You took something. He's like, I told you not to, and you did it anyways. And he's like, that's why the manager was able to get the drop on you, is what he says. Because you were zoned out. All of this could have been avoided. So he tells both of them he doesn't want to see them. He's like, Quan, never come back to whatever town or whatever they live in. And he's like, Ronnie, I don't want to see you till you got my money, and then I don't ever want to see you again. And he tells Quan, you better be quiet, and you're going to learn to live with basically killing that man, and never to come back. Red Hill, that's where they live. He's like, never come back to Red Hill. And so when Bug drops them off, Quan tells Ronnie I hate him, and Ronnie's like, I don't think he likes you either. And so this is all early morning. So then Bug just goes to work after this. So we jump ahead a little bit, and we are actually with Llewellyn, which was the manager from the jewelry store, and the cops are talking. They're talking to her, and like they're basically like, you're not going to get any charges for shooting your weapon. We learned that she got shot in the thigh, and it's been 2 weeks since the robbery. And she lies and says that the only thing that was stolen was cash. But she doesn't say anything about the diamonds, which is really strange. And they think it's weird that the robbers went straight to the safe because obviously it's a jewelry store. Like, why didn't they smash in all the, whatever cases and steal that stuff? And so they leave or whatever, and she gets a call from, it says John 11:1, which stands for, I guess that passage in the Bible is about Lazarus. And the call is from a man that is named Lazarus, and they call him Lazy. And we learned that the jewelry store was a front for Lazy. So he's like a big time, all kind of dealer, not just drugs, whatever. And so she also hears a knock on her door, and she's like, you can come in. She's basically like, if that's his hitman here to kill me, then they can let themselves in. So 2 men come in. One man's name is Horace. The other one is Billy. And they are like, they came to ask her 2 questions. And she's like, I didn't tell the police anything. And they're like, oh, we know. We just saw them leave. They're long gone. And Billy is basically like, who did you tell about the diamonds? And she considers being honest. And we also learned that the diamonds were worth $2 million. So even more than Ronnie knew or thought that they were. And she's like, no one, but she basically is like, oh, Jenny's been around me or whatever, trying to say she just picked up on it. And Billy is rubbing on her thigh, and he grabs on her wound and squeezes it. And she tries to pull a knife on him, but he catches it. And so he's like, what's the girl's name? And she lies and say Lisa, which is another employee. And he's like, oh, so it must be Jenny, because he knows that she lies. So she's like, please don't hurt her, talking about Jenny. And he says the police are going to start looking at the books, and they're going to find out that it was a front, basically. So she says I won't say anything to the cops. And he's like, he told Lazy that it would be best if he took care of it because he knows her. And so he basically goes behind her chair, and they hold her down, and they suffocate her with a bag. And then they pour moonshine all over her apartment and burn it down. And one of them is planning to go see Lisa, which is Billy, and then Horace is supposed to go see Jenny. We go back to Bug, and he's meeting with Ronnie. Apparently Ronnie's 2 hours late to this meeting, and it's been a week late with their payment. But he's literally everything is due. I need this money. Ronnie pulls up in a new car. It's a used car, but it's new to him. And it was $7,000, and then he got some rims. And he's like, don't you think it's weird that you don't have anything? All of a sudden you got a car with rims. So Ronnie pulls the money out. It's in Captain Crunch boxes. And he says, he's like, maybe we can work together again. And Bug's like, absolutely not. So Ronnie goes off, and he's planning to take Jenny her cut, and he wants to party, and he knows Bug's probably right. He needs to lay it low. So he calls Jenny, and she answers, but she's being real weird. And she's like, do you have the money? And he's like, yeah, trying to talk to her. And she's like, okay, and just hangs up. Bug goes straight to the bank with his money, and then he goes to the nursing home right before they close. The lady's packing up in there, and she's like, it's unusual for me to pay in cash. And he's like, no, it's not. I paid you in cash before when my mama was acting up. Yeah, you've been taking money under the table, lady.
Right.
So he goes and checks on his mom, and she's basically like, am I going to have to sleep on your porch? And her mom knows that he did some kind of job, and she says they're going to find you, and they're going to run you out of town just like your daddy. And she says that she tells him, you thought you were saving him that day at the Tasty Freeze, and it only delayed the inevitable. And then basically he went to jail all for his daddy just to run anyways. And he tells her, my dad didn't run because of me. He ran because of you and your mouth. Because he's pissed at this point because she's just always ragging on him. And she apologizes for who she picked as his dad. And he just leaves. He goes to see his daughter at her grandmother's house. And he's it's a horrible, dilapidated house. And the grandmother comes to the door. And she's like, what do you want? And he's like, I'm here to see Ariel. And she's like, why? And he's like, because I'm her daddy. And he's like, no matter how much you try to pretend her curls are a perm. And she says, we don't want your drug money. And he's like, look, I don't have time for that today. Can you just go get her? So she comes down, and every time he sees her, he's she has less and less clothes on. She's wearing the skimpiest outfits. And her
if she sneezes, her shorts shorts would turn into a thong.
Yeah, he always is but he doesn't say anything because they don't have that kind of relationship. So he doesn't father her. And so he's like, where's your car? And basically Lil Rip had to go to work. At least he got a job. Shout out to you, Lil Rip.
Yeah.
And so she let him borrow it or whatever. And he doesn't even really care about that. So he comes basically to give her the money for school. And he's like, it's $24,000 for 1 year of school. And her mouth drops open. And he's like, basically like, you need to put it in the bank. No more than $10,000. And don't tell your mama or your grandma about it. And she's like, am I going to be in trouble? Because basically her mom's like, you do illegal stuff. Which is crappy because like for a while it seems like he's been good. Like,
right.
That's just crap. And he's like, look, get out of this town. Like, don't look back. Don't look for Lil Rip. Don't look for me, your mom, your grandma. Like, just get out of here. So he leaves from there. He's like, I'm going to go to Walmart, go get some steaks. I'm going to cook dinner. And he hears, like, all these sirens. So he pulls over because he's like, crap. He pulls off the highway. But they're fire trucks. And he's passing by that Precision Auto place. And the entire building is in flames. And he's like, crap, like, they're probably going to think it was me. So he goes to the store, then he gets home, and Kia's like, did you get paid? And he says, yeah. And she's like, okay, no more, right? And he's like, no. So he tells her about the auto store, and she's like, you know they're going to think it was you. And they watch the news that night after dinner, and he sees a report about an apartment fire. And then we learn that he learns the name of the guy that was killed in the jewelry store, the black guy. He was 19 years old, and it says he leaves behind a wife and a son. And I said, oh my God, I bet it's that freaking man that he helped on the highway. And it is. And they freaking named the baby Anthony after his dad. Or after him, they thought.
Yeah. I didn't put it, I was like, okay. And then I was like, Anthony, okay? And then saw, like, he was throwing a fit. And I was like, oh, my God.
I was like, oh, my... Because I was like, why are they even, like, really mentioning this? And I'm like, oh, my God, I bet it's this kid. And it was. Like, oh, you just helped them. And, like days before. And his baby's, like, days old. And he basically starts thinking, like... He's like, why was he even in that store when he was broke? And... Which... makes sense because I don't know if it ever really says it. I'm assuming he worked for Lazy. I'm assuming like it comes back to this. Like that's kind of why he was in there. And then he starts thinking about like basically when he was pregnant with his daughter, before they knew that she was a girl, they wanted to name her Anthony. And then when he had the boys with Kia, she hates his dad kind of. Like, well, she doesn't hate his dad, but she hates kind of how he idolizes him. So she, of course, never wanted to name their kid Anthony. So it's like all these times that he like possibly Anthony could have been out there. And then for this freaking kid to name his kid Anthony and then he be responsible kind of for his death is just wild. And he's like, now there's another freaking boy out here who's not going to have a dad. We go to Ronnie and he is at Jenny's and she like barely opens the door. The chain is still on it and she's like, give me the money. And he's like, I mean, can I come in? And she's like, can you just give me the money? And he's like, is there somebody in there? Like, that's fine. And she's like, just pass the money through or whatever. And she snatches it and says, I'll talk to you later. So she opens the boxes, makes sure the money's in there, and she's packing. There's a man on the floor with a knife sticking out of him, dead. And his phone keeps going off. And I said, okay, Jenny.
I was not expecting that.
I was like, okay, Jenny.
I thought somebody was going to be in there, like, just
holding.
waiting.
Yeah, I thought they were going to, like, let him come in and, like, kill them both.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Jenny. So apparently Jenny's daddy sucked and used to beat the heck out of her. So she learned how to fight. And so I was like, this must be Horace. And so she looks out and she sees one strange car in the parking lot. Of course, it parked right next to hers. And so she's, like, trying to wait to decide, like, when to leave. And she said she saw the news. She knows Llewellyn has been lying. And she knows that she's dead from the apartment fire. And she was going to let Ronnie know, but, like, not till she saves herself. Which I'm like, okay, Jenny, put your oxygen mask on first. So, basically, that guy showed up at 12, was dead by 12:30, and now it's 7 o'clock. So, like, because Ronnie took all day. So, she's like, I'm trying to get out of here. Mm-hmm. So, she starts driving. Her gas light comes on, but she's like, I got money. Like, I'm good. I can stop somewhere. She's like, I'm trying to get to the Bahamas. And she, like, only passes one car on the road. It's a Cadillac. And then she looks up, and the car turns around to follow her. Dang. So we go back to Bug. He's at work with Kelvin. They're super busy, and because obviously Precision burned down. So they're super busy all day. Well, at the end of the day, the Precision guys show up. So it's a dad and a son. We learn that the dad used to drive trucks. He pulled over one day, got a lottery ticket like he normally did. He won a bunch of money, called his boss and was like, somebody come get this truck. I quit. And he opened Precision. And he says that he basically comes and is like, do you know about the fire? And Bug's like, no. And he's like, well, someone said they saw a black guy running from the scene. And I put the laughing emojis. Of course they saw a black guy running from the scene. So he says that basically he feels like he doesn't think like he did it himself. He thinks he sent somebody to go do it. And he was like, because your shop is going to be closed in the next 3 months. And the cops say, I just need proof. And he says that all you people do is lie and make babies you can't take care of. And he's about to call him the N-word. I was like, yeah, go ahead. I was like, handle your business. Handle your business, Bug. So, like, this whole time, like, he's had, like, it's some kind of wrench. It's the thing they use to put the bolts on the car, on the tire. Like, he's already had this stuff in his hand. So, him and Kelvin, like, literally go to work beating the crap out of them. And, like, they bust his head, like, the son or the dad. They bust one of their heads open. And he's like, if I wanted to take you out of business, like, I would have just, like, handled you, like, outside of a bar or something. I didn't have to, like, burn your building down. And so, he's like, get out. So then he goes to pick up his son. So we learned like the night before that his son stayed at some new friend's house, which was nearby where Precision was. So he goes and gets his son, and like the lady's like, oh yeah, you can come in, blah, 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 blah. He's like, yeah, I don't have time for that. Like, send him out. So he's like, did you burn their shop down? And his son just goes, this is his older son. And he's like, I was just trying to help. And so he goes off like, what? Like, why would you do that? And he's like, you don't see mom crying. Like every night when you leave or whenever you leave, mom is always crying. And she's like been talking on the phone with her cousins. And she's like, she doesn't know if you're going to die or go to jail. And so basically he went because Bug's like, I never heard of this friend before. So like you basically just found somebody that lived nearby. So how did you get there? And he's like, I snuck out by myself. I told him I was meeting up with a girl. Like nobody went with me. And he's like, we can never tell anybody about this. You know, obviously he went to juvie as a kid. He doesn't want that for his son. So he gets home. He tells Kia. She immediately like hops up like, yeah, because I'm about to beat you. I'm about to beat on you. And like Bug's like, no, like we have to protect him, which like also I'm about to beat on you. And then I'm going to protect you. Arson? Because, like, Bug was like, what if somebody would have been there working? Right. Like, I mean, what if that would have exploded and, like, took out other people's, like, houses? Like, anything. Like,
I mean, and out of everything, arson. Like, yeah, that is a big.
That was huge. Like, that's. And you can't control that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, like, I mean, he went, like, all the way. So, I mean, you know. And so he basically is just like thinking about how he's always tried to be a better man than his father, and he feels like he's just ending up just like him. And so Bug basically thinks back to a time that a man named Red came up to his dad, and this is what happened at the Tasty Freeze. So he was at the Tasty Freeze with his dad. A man named Red came up to him. His dad was out of the car. Bug was in the car, and he basically was like, you're a snitch or whatever, and he wanted his dad to go with him. And his dad's like, okay, well, I just need to drop my son off. And Red was like, yeah, no. Like, basically, his dad was a driver just like him. So he's like, I'm not letting you get behind the wheel of a car. I'll never see you again. And so he basically kind of like looks at Bug, and like Bug basically gets in the driver's seat, slowly like releases the brake, and he runs this man down, and the man ends up dying. So that's why they said there's blood in the parking lot. And you know, he gets out the car. His dad's like, well, just tell him it was an accident. But 4 weeks later, Bug got sentenced to 5 years in juvie, and he never saw his dad again. So we go back to Ronnie, and it's like same time frame. It's been 2 weeks since the whole robbery, and he's taken some other girl home. And the news are saying that they're basically pinning the whole robbery on Jenny and Llewellyn because they're missing. Well, no, Llewellyn's dead, and Jenny's missing. And Reggie is telling him, like, to wake up. So he goes to bed, like, or whatever, and he's, like, half asleep. He's like, Ronnie, wake up. Ronnie, wake up. And so he's, like, not really doing that, but all of a sudden he hears another man's voice. So he reaches under his pillow for his gun, and the man's like, yeah, that's gone. And he turns over. There's two men, and this is Billy, and there's some other man that's holding a gun to Reggie. And they're like, Ronnie, you need to get up. And he's like, you know, what's going on? Like, he tries to play dumb. So they shoot Reggie in the foot. So we go back over to Bug. Him and Kia are out on the town. They go to a bar. They're out dancing, having fun for the first time in years. And Kia, like, went shopping that day. And he's also considering sending money to the, like, woman of the boy that, like, the wife of that kid that got killed. But he knows, like, obviously that would look weird. So he can't do that. And Bug goes over to the bar to order some drinks. They're called Royal Flushes. And there's a man at the bar. He's never seen him before. And he's got a scar, which the scarred man is Billy, I'm pretty sure. And he says, like, that's the hardest hand to get. And I was like, oh, God. And so the man just starts saying, like, weird stuff. They have, like, this little conversation back and forth. And he says something like, if I was going to kill you, I'm going to do it in your face, not from behind. And like Bug's like, yeah, this is weird. And he's starting to clock the man. So he goes back over to Kia and he knows the man's like watching him, and he recognizes almost everyone else in the bar except for that man and 2 other men that are at another table. And he's like, I need to listen to my gut. So he texts Kelvin. He's like, take the girls home, because Kelvin's got a girl with him too. And Kelvin's like, what's up or whatever. And Kia's like, who are you texting? Because everybody is here. But she's kind of drunk, and he's trying to like, keep her quiet, keep her off of it. And he's like, oh, somebody wants me to come in and get a car. And she's like, no. But he's like, one day I'll be rich and we won't have to do stuff like that. He's like, Kelvin, take him or whatever. And Kelvin's like, are you sure you want me to leave you? He's like, yeah. So Kelvin takes them and he goes to the bathroom, and like on his way back there, he like clocks that like all 3 of the guys have guns. He goes to the bathroom, and I was like, great, they're going to like pounce on him in the bathroom, which they don't. So he's like thinking about the news. He knows that the manager's dead. He knows Jenny's missing, and there was a dead body in her apartment. So basically he's like, somebody's tying up loose ends. So he goes back out, and he just walks up to the table with the 2 guys and pulls up a chair. And he's like, and they basically are like, can I help you? And he says, he real quick grabs one of the man's guns and like under the table is holding at him. And he's like, why have y'all been watching me? So the man from the bar comes over and pulls out his phone to show Bo a video, and it's a video like from 5 minutes ago of like the back of Kelvin's car pulling away. So there was actually 2 more guys outside, and basically the guy that shows the video, which I think is Billy, was basically like, yeah, like we were gonna like just follow you are, but they're like, you're quick. And so he basically tells Bug, he's like, you might be able to kill all of us, but if I don't call my guys in like 5 minutes or whatever, then they're gonna go shoot up whatever house that these people go to. So Billy is like, give Carl, which is one of the other guys, his gun back, and he's like, come up the road with us to talk. So Bug's like, okay. So he's nervous because he's like, they don't blindfold me or tie me down. He's like, this is a bad sign that I probably ain't never gonna leave here again, because they don't care what I see. And they like drive up some mountains. They go to like a whole other town. And the guys in the car are Carl, Billy, and Jim Bob. And they go to this smoke shop. And when they get in the smoke shop, they go into like this back room. There's more people there. And also in the back room is Ronnie and Quan. Dumb and Dumber. So Ronnie like immediately tries to speak, and Bo's like, shut up. Like, don't talk to me. Don't speak to me. And he can tell like both of them have been beat up pretty bad. And he's like, yeah, y'all are going to be useless. So a tall, thin man comes in, and we learn that this is Lazy or Lazarus. And Ronnie immediately starts to try apologizing to him, and one of the other guys slaps him. And the man starts talking about he loves movies, and he wants to know who was responsible for that high-speed chase for the getaway, because it was just like the movies. And nobody speaks, so Bo starts to speak up. And the man, Lazy, tells us that Jenny told them that Ronnie was the brains, but like he knows that Bug was the driver, basically. And he's like, I like your style, but he's like, unfortunately, I need to be compensated for what you stole from me. And he's like, you caused me some problems. And so Lazy says, y'all must have got $700,000. And then Quan and Bo are looking at Ronnie like, oh, you shorted us. Because again, he never told them how much money those diamonds were really worth. So like, yeah, me and Ronnie got issues. So we learned that they've gotten Jenny, like they, and they took Ronnie's money, and Quan basically didn't have nothing left. So he says, I'm not going to kill you, because he needs them to do a job in North Carolina. And he wants them to intercept a truck of like platinum coils from one of his basically big enemy or whatever. The guy's name is Shade, I'm pretty sure. And he's like, it won't be easy. They're going to have guns and stuff. And so Bug starts asking questions, and he gets hit in the back too. And Lazy's like, we're a family here. And he's like, I'm your daddy, so you don't speak unless you're spoken to. Vomit. And he's like, also, since we're a family, like we don't snitch on each other. So he's like, guess which one of your guys told on you? And he says Jenny didn't know about you specifically. So like it was obviously Ronnie or Quan. And he's like, it was the same one running his mouth at the strip club about dropping someone. And Quan says, oh Jesus. And Lazy says, don't think you're going to see him. And they literally shoot him right in the head. I was like, he clocked you. Bug clocked you right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Like you were a weak link for sure. Yep. So, and Bug, like, he knew Ronnie didn't do it, because he's like, Ronnie is a lot of things, but he's not a snitch. So he says that, or Lazy basically tells him, you're going to do this, or I'm going to kill everyone you love in front of you, and slow. He's like, I might even burn him. Like one of the guys, they call him Bernie Man. So he likes to burn people. And he says, like, basically his mama named him Lazarus because he died when he was born, but he was brought back. And he's like, if God couldn't kill me, you won't be able to kill me either. And they basically tell him to get out. And so as they're leaving, Bug is listening to Lazy talk. And he basically is like, even though he tells them, like, if y'all do this job, we'll be even. But then he tells, like, his crew, he's like, after they do this job, I'm going to kill him. So I'm going to get everything I want, basically. So we learn that they have a week to do this job, and Ronnie's like, of course, they're walking out. Ronnie's like, still, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I promise. And Bug, like, grabs him and drags him into the freaking ditch, and he just starts choking the shit out of him. And he's like, you need me. And he's like, shut up. I just, like, can see this so visually. And he's like, he's like, he's like, he's gonna kill us like everyone else. And he's like, once they have that truck, he's gonna kill us. And he's like, that truck needs to be our way out because he is scared of whoever this competition is. So, like, that's the only leverage that they have. So, like, Bo's been making a plan basically since the moment he walked into the room. Ronnie says that he thinks, he says, do you think Jenny is dead? And he, like, starts telling us how basically him and Jenny have been off and on since they were in high school. And he was supposed to take her to prom. He got expelled from school. And she was beautiful like an angel. And he's like, well, now she's a real angel. How poetic, Ronnie. How poetic. So Bug's like, I'll call you tomorrow. And he's like, we need 2 more people. So Ronnie gets home. This was kind of like cute, but he's like, Reggie is literally sitting in the chair with his foot duct taped because he got shot. And he like hops up because he's holding the gun, but he doesn't shoot him. And he like runs up and hugs Ronnie. And he's like, I didn't think you were coming back. And he's like, the shot must have went straight through his foot and didn't hit any nerves because he's like, it doesn't hurt. I can walk just fine. But he has duct tape on it. So there's that. And then Bug goes home and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning or something. He's covered in blood. And he tries to, like, sneak in, but Kia wakes up and she's like, where were you? There's blood on your face. He gets in the shower and, like, obviously she's having a meltdown because, like, this has gone from bad to worse very fast. And he's like, I'll handle it. And she's like, how can you handle it? Like, how can you handle this? So we switch over to the next day. Bug's talking to Kelvin about Lazy. And he says that they got info from, there's basically like an inside guy in this other corporation that's telling Lazy all this information. And that most of like the other like kingpins around or whatever have given in to this shade guy. But Lazy's like the only one that's still trying to like hold out, but he's really suffering. And Kelvin's like, he wants to help. He's like, I owe you. You've always been there for me. You gave me a job, blah, 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 blah. Bug's like, you don't owe me anything. But Kelvin's like, let me do this. Like, I want to do this. So Bo's plan is to like kind of pitch them against each other. And he wants to try and get in touch with someone on the other side and then try to like do something at the drop off so that they'll show up at the same time. We learn that Ronnie doesn't have any money left. And Bo calls him to tell him about doing the job. And he's like, do you think that Reggie will be able to drive? And he's like, well, he got shot, but he'll be fine. But then when he's talking to Ronnie, he's like, do you think they'll give us our money back? Are you slow? You've got to be slow. They're barely giving you your life back. Like, they're not. And Bug's like, this is simply about us living. Like, the money is the least of our problems. Right. And he's like, you should have hid your money better. And Ronnie's like, the cereal boxes were a great idea. Yeah, because you're just riding around with cereal every day. Right. Like, oh my gosh. So Bug is waiting for the truck. We go ahead a little bit. It's been their week. And basically they found out, exactly what was coming. So it's not actually a truck. There's an SUV following like a van. And it's like one of those vans that just have like the front windows or whatever. And so he's like on the side of the road and like he tells Kelvin that everything's all set. So he got another car from his Uncle Booney and he like basically got some like big Cadillac or something that was like wide enough for this side road to block it. So the vehicles start coming and he's basically set this car on fire in the middle of the road. So they have no choice but to stop because they can't get around it. And so the vehicles come to a stop and 3 men get out holding guns from the SUV. No one gets out of the van, which the van is where the actual coils are. So while they're out, Kelvin comes from like the other side of the road or like the inner, wherever it is. And he has like on a work shirt without his name on it. And they like start pointing guns at him. And he's like, Bo's like, okay, am I going to have to shoot them? And I was like, if Kelvin dies. Mm-hmm. because I like Kelvin. And so basically he's like, I don't see nothing here. Like, whatever. I just got to get home. This is the only way home. He's like, my wife already thinks I'm cheating on her. And they're like, are you? Which he never answers this question. But he's like, I got a fire extinguisher. Like, we can just like blow it out and then we can push it off the side of the road. So they're like, fine. And then another man gets out of the SUV. So now there's 4 men out of the SUV and then Kelvin. And so they like push this car off to the side of the road. And while they're doing this, Bug like sneaks up to the van and he had like a note on a piece of paper. He puts it up against the window, has his gun, and he's like, get in the back and lay down or whatever. So the guy does, and there's only one guy in the actual van, and he's like, are you going to kill me? And he's like, not if you do, like, what you're supposed to. And he handcuffs the man. So he does all of this without them noticing because they're moving this car. And basically he's sitting in the van now, and after the guys move the car on the road, one of them still takes their gun up to Kelvin and like has it up to his face, and he's like, okay, like what, like he's like, even if I shoot, like by the time I shoot, Kelvin's still already gonna be dead, like, so he's basically just like waiting. And so the guy's like, you need to forget everything you saw tonight, I don't want to see you again. And so Kelvin's like, forget what? Like, it's already forgotten. So all the men get back in the SUV, and the van windows are tinted, so like they can't tell that Bug has switched places with this guy. They just still see the guy or whatever. So they start driving, and he's driving in the front. So he like has already like researched what kind of van this is, and like he knows how to pull the fuse box so that the brake lights go out. So he does that, and then he starts speeding off and like trying to get away from the SUV. So they start shooting, but he's like, again, he knows how to drive, so he's getting away from them. A deer runs out, so like he has to swerve and slow down, but he still is able to like get away. And he calls Ronnie. So Ronnie pulls out in front of him, and he's got like probably like a big U-Haul kind of thing. So basically, Bug has taken this other big truck and souped it up so that the side door opens like a ramp or something, or like the back door. I don't know. It's wild. Like on the outside, it looks like a ramp. This is literally Ocean's 11, Fast and the Furious. It's crazy. So instead of like a regular back door, it's like a ramp. So the door comes down, he put rubber on it, and he's going to drive his van inside of this other car. Like, this is a movie. So, so he tries to do it, but of course Ronnie's like, oh, my foot slipped or whatever. So he doesn't get to do it. So he's like, crap, like that was our best time window. Like the road's getting ready to turn, all these things. And like, they're about to catch up with us. So he tries it again, and he's able to like just barely like make it inside. And we switch over to the other guys. They see the van parked at a gas station. So they get out and they're like, yeah, we got him or whatever. Well, they go up and the van's empty. There's no coils. The Bug's not in it. And they're like, what the heck? So the guy keeps opening the door like something is magically going to appear. He does it like 3 times, and finally like the window shatters. And the whole time Reggie is in the gas station because he's brought this other identical van and dropped it off. And the guy in the gas station is like, do you know this guy? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. So he goes out, goes to his car. He's literally terrified. And I was like, great, he's gonna tell because he's so scared. And the guys are like, hey, did you see who dropped this van off? And he's like, no. And so then the guy like is like, oh, Shade's calling or whatever. So Reggie gets in his other car and he drives off to go catch up with the rest of the gang. So Bug and all of them are headed to like a drop location, and Ronnie says like, maybe we should just take a couple of coils. Like, how would Lazy know? He doesn't know exactly how much. Like, how he literally told them everything about this. He knows the license plate numbers. How do you know that he doesn't know exactly how many coils are in here? He just can't. He's a klepto. Like he just can't help himself. And so Bo like grabs his shoulder and is like, no. So they get to like this wooded area, and they get the original driver out and they blindfold him. But Ronnie like doesn't tie it, and the blindfold, or doesn't either his blindfold, I don't know. He doesn't tie it right, and the blindfold falls off so that he can literally see Ronnie's whole face. And then the guy runs off into the woods. So now they have to chase after him. So they're all chasing after this guy, and Bo's like, I wonder if Ronnie did that on purpose. But then he's like, Ronnie's not that smart. So he's like looking or whatever, and he's like, the driver was like a big guy. Like, there's no way he like got away that fast. So all of a sudden, the guy slams into Bug, and he starts using his handcuffs to choke him. And so he starts pushing on the driver's like eyeballs basically and gets him off of him. And he goes to reach for his gun, but he had like dropped it in the scuffle. But then someone shoots the man, and he's dead. He looks up, and then there's Kelvin and Ronnie, and they start talking or whatever, and all of a sudden, Kelvin's face explodes, and he collapses and is like falling down this hill. And I said, what? I was so pissed off. I was so pissed off. I was hurt. I'm hurt. So Bug thinks he's blind, but he realizes there's just blood all in his eyes because he's got a wound on his head. And he's got a graze on his arm in that cut. And Kelvin is dead. Kelvin is such a good character.
Yeah.
I was hurt about that. I know someone's going to die. Why him? So it's been 3 hours. Like, he's been passed out for 3 hours. And he's like, Ronnie double-crossed them. Like, Ronnie's the one that shot Kelvin. And he knows that he's like, Kia's going to have to get out of town because Lazy's going to be looking for the truck. Ronnie's not going to drop it off. He's going to think we all double-crossed him. And he tries to get his burner phone, but that's broken. So he knows the van's gone because he also had left the keys in the van, which he knows was a dummy mistake when they chased the driver. So he's like, I have to go find Kelvin's body because he has the other like keys or whatever for one of the other cars. So, and he's like, and I need to go see him because that's my cousin and like, that's what I deserve basically. So he does that and like, that's so sad. And we switch over to Ronnie. He's driving and Reggie's like having a meltdown. Reggie didn't know that he was going to do this. And he's like, he's going to come after us. Like, Bo's going to come and kill us. And he's like, Bo's dead. And Reggie's like, did you check? And he's like, so he doesn't know. Like, did you make sure the killer was, that whole thing? Right. And Reggie's like, if Bug doesn't kill us, Lazy is. And Ronnie's like, trust me. And Reggie's like, trust you like all these other people, like Jenny and Bug and Kelvin and all these other people that are dead now. And so Ronnie's like, well, he was just going to let that $3 million go. Like, he just could not let the money go. And so the burner phone rings and he answers it. And Lazy's like, where's the van? Because they told, like, I've heard that, like, the other guys are pissed off and they're looking for you, but you didn't call me when you were supposed to call me. And he's like, oh, Bug turned on us. And Ronnie's like, well, we're headed home. And Lazy's like, well, get home and stay there. And he tells Reggie that, something about going to Wonderland. I don't know. He tells Reggie to go to like Wonderland and make sure he has all his stuff. And so he gets off the phone and Lazy's like, go to Ronnie and Reggie's house. But he's like, he doesn't think that this is true. Like, he's like, Bug was too smart for that. Like, that just doesn't seem like something that he would have done. And he thinks Ronnie's probably lying. So, Bug's at a rest stop. He was able to get the van like started, one of the cars started, but it's like leaking something. I don't know. The radiator's leaking. That's what he said. And so there's like a Chinese family eating breakfast and they're like, obviously like he looks like crap and he's walking and there's like obviously like the strange black man walking up on them. And so he's just like, can I have some pepper? And they're like, oh, okay. So there's like a little girl. She's like, are you eating breakfast? And he's like, no, my radiator's leaking and the pepper will patch it up or something. And so then the girl's like, what happened to your face? And he's like, I had an accident. And then he asked to borrow their phone. So he tries to call Kia. And at the exact same time, she knows that there's a white man at the door. And like they bust in basically. One of the boys was still asleep. And the other one was, which is the older one, Javon. And then Darren was eating cereal. So this man like, oh, they open the door. She opens the door, which she knows better than this. I don't know why she did that. And the man's like, are you married to Bug or Bo or Beauregard? And she's like, I don't even know if she answers. And he grabs her and then like someone comes in and grabs Darren. And then all of a sudden, Javon walks out with a gun. And he's like, y'all need to leave. And the guy's like, you don't want to do that. And he's literally, Javon's like, F this, and shoots the man. I was like, this boy been doing, like, what kind of criminal activities have you been doing?
Behind your parents'
You
back.
did a whole arson and got away with it. You just killed a man holding your mom or one of them. And then, so, like, one of the other guys starts shooting. He's shooting back. Someone else gets shot. And then there's somebody, like, in the car. They, like, drag the man in the car. But Darren gets shot, like, their youngest son. So, like, he is, like, obviously having a meltdown. She's, like, call 911. And this is when Javon realizes that he got shot. And so they get to the hospital and at the same time, Bug is running in and he's like, I'm sorry. Like, I tried to call. He's like, and she goes off. She's like, this is all your fault. And he's like, I've been trying to call. And she says, you should have sold that car. You care more about that, dead snitch than your children. And now my son has killed someone. And she's pissed. And I was like, rightfully so. And she says, today they're my sons and I'm protecting them from you. And he's like, my car broke down. And she's like, just get out. Like, get out of here. Get out. So he goes to see Booney and he's like, you were right about Ronnie. He tells him everything. And Booney's like, how can we help or whatever. And his uncle tells him to stop like talking crazy. Cause he's like, I'm going to leave. Like, I got to get out of town. And he's like, your family needs you. Like, you can't just get out of. He's like, I'm a cancer. Like, basically, it's like a vicious cycle. You know, basically, I'm just like my dad, and like I'm a Cancer. I need to remove myself. Now my son's like a murderer and an arsonist, and my other son's shot. And he's like, he goes to see his mom after leaving from his Uncle Booney's, and basically like lets her know, like, kind of like he's got something he's got to do, and she probably ain't gonna see him again. We switch over to Ronnie. He's doing some coke, of course, and him and Reggie have another girl. And they hear a commotion, and they're at the Wonderland Club or whatever. And so basically, Bug knew exactly where to find them because they're hiding out from Lazy. Actually, no, I'll take that back. Ronnie's not there. It's just Reggie. Reggie's at Wonderland with this girl, and he knew where to find him. So he goes, and like Reggie's literally in the middle of having sex with this girl, and the girl's like, "Hey," and Reggie's like, "No, no, no." And he's like, "Hey, there's somebody behind you." So literally, Bug like grabs him and like slams him up against the wall. And what he says, it's a Jackson Pollard, like, you know those like stain things, and it's like, what do you see in the in the image? It's like, do you see a butterfly? Like that's what he does, but like with his blood in his face. And he drags him out, and like literally no one even tries to help him. And like he tries to fight him, and he slams his hand in the car door. And Reggie's like, "I'm sorry, like I didn't know the plan." He's like, "Please don't make me tell him my brother." And Bug's like, "He got my son shot, he got Kelvin killed." And so Reggie finally tells him like he's in another county with a girl, and he doesn't know where the van is. And then at the same time, he gets a text from Jean, which is Kia's cousin, because she's not talking to him. And basically, we learn that they did get the bullet out of Darren, and he's out of surgery, but that's all we know for now. So now Ronnie is doing drugs, and he hasn't been able to reach Reggie all day. And he sees a car racing towards his trailer with the lights off just seconds before it rams into it, which is the Duster. So he tries to run out the back door, and the car reverses and slams into him. So he's like bleeding all over the place. He's peed on himself, and like Bug gets out, and he's like, he goes, "I'm sorry, I think I broke my legs." And Bug's like, "No, I broke them." And he says, "You're only sorry that you got caught." And he's like, "I'm sorry about Kelvin." And Bug's like, "You don't get to say his name." And he steps on his leg, and he says, "Are you sorry about my son too? They came to my house." And he's like, "You just couldn't stick to the planet." And Ronnie's like, "I couldn't go back to being poor white trash. I was okay being trash, but I didn't want to be poor." Like, what?
I mean, at least he's honest.
He is very honest. And he goes, what does he say? Oh, and so Ronnie goes like, "Did you kill Reggie?" And Bug shoots him in one of his knees and is like, "That was for Kelvin." And he shoots him in the other one, and he says, "That was for Darren." And he's like, "Where's the van?" And Ronnie like passes out, and then he like steps on one of his like broken ankles again. So he brings him back, and he's like, "It's at his granddad's place somewhere." And so he aims at his head, and so we switch over to Boonies, and he pulls out both Reggie and Ronnie's bodies. So he is like the Punisher, or like what's that movie with Gerard Butler when they like come in and like a vigilante, they come in and like rape his wife and kill his wife and kid in front of him, and then like the justice system doesn't do anything. That's such a good movie, by the way. Can't think of what it's called, but it's so good. And then he like is literally killing everyone. Yeah, that's exactly what he is. So he takes their bodies and like, I think the van or something. He takes it all to Booney, and he basically is like, they're going to crush their bodies up inside of like one of the cars or whatever. So, Bug gets Ronnie's burner phone, and calls Lazy, and he's like,
"I got the movie for you.
Oh, what is
it?
it?
Law-Abiding Citizen."
Law-Abiding Citizen. Yeah. Yes. So good. If you haven't seen it, like, I love a good vigilante. Like,
yeah.
What's that one with, there's another one too. I just love vigilante movies. There's one with Jennifer Gardner. I can't think what this called either. I always can remember like movies, but not what it's called. But if you like vigilante stuff, like, those are good. Keely's probably gonna look it up and tell us. What is it? It's called like sugar. It's something weird like
Peppermint.
I was like sugar. That's good too.
Yes,
okay.
it is.
So Bug took Ronnie's burner phone and calls him, and he's like, he's got the van, and he's like, meet me here. And Lazy's like, he says, you don't give me orders. He's like, if I tell you to eat a shit sandwich and wash it down with piss, you should do that. I'm like, that's absolutely disgusting. Why would you ever tell anybody to do that? And basically Bug's like, Lazy, like, you don't want me to come there. Like, if I come there, I'm going to murder absolutely everybody. And he's like, you need this van, so meet me. And so Lazy's like, fine, and they agree to meet wherever at 5 o'clock. So he hugs Booney, and he's like, make sure you take care of Kia. And he goes to the hospital, and he's the only one there. And his son just looks so like tiny in the bed, and he apologizes to him. He's unconscious, and he says, like, you know, you may never see me again, but he loves him. And he says a good father never puts his like kids in harm's way, and he's never going to put them in harm's way again. Then he calls Ariel, and he says, I just wanted to tell you I love you, which is like the first time he's told her probably since she's like been old enough to remember. And he's just like dead silent. And she's like, I love you too, Daddy, which she hasn't referred to him in that way since she was a little kid either. And he just says, I got to go. And they hang up. And so he's already at the like meetup spot. And so a black Cadillac pull up, which is Lazy's car. So Billy, Lazy, and another man get out. And Lazy approaches, and he's like, and Bug's like pointing his shotgun at him, and he says, I'm just giving you what's yours, and I want you to just let me go. And Lazy's like, well, where's Ronnie and Reggie? And he's like, how can I trust you if that's how you treat your partners? Because like he's basically like, he knows they're dead or whatever. He's like, is the aluminum even like real? And he's like, you can go check. And so like they go to check, but they're like scared that the car's booby trapped, so they're like jumping back, but it all looks legit. And then Lazy's like, okay, well, we want you to start the van because like maybe you rigged it with the bomb. So he goes and starts the van for him, and it's raggedy, but it's fine. And they're like, is it even going to make it down the road? He's like, it'll make it. So Lazy's like, you know this ain't over. And Bug's like, that's fine. He's like, the van is for my family. Like, I just don't want you to go after my family. Just go after me. So they start to drive off, and Lazy like calls someone and tells them to follow Bug when he leaves and grab him and his family and bring them to the tobacco store. He wants to have a 3-day weekend of torturing them basically and then be done with them. So as they drive off, it's the van and then the Cadillac's behind them. Well, he did have a bomb in there. He like basically Googled or whatever he does in 2012. We had Google. He Googled and he like learned how to make a bomb because that's probably not too hard for him. So he uses the burner phone as the trigger. And he was like, he never made one before, but it actually was pretty simple. So like he's like 80 feet away, but the blow still knocks him back. And he can tell that the men aren't dead because he can hear them like moaning and stuff. Someone opens one of the driver doors, kicks a body out, and then the Cadillac takes off. And so he's like, dang. So he gets his car out of like, there's a barn where they're at, and the Duster was in there the whole time. So he gets his car, and Lazy and Billy are still alive. So he starts chasing them. And then a blue car, which is whoever Lazy must have called, comes back and is chasing him. So there's like a 3-car thing going on. So the blue car's chasing him. He like throws his car in reverse, still going like 60 miles an hour. And the blue car, like, obviously is like, oh, what the heck? So they slow down a little bit. He pulls his gun out between the mirror, like on the side of the door, and literally shoots at the blue car. He doesn't kill the driver, but it like hits the hood or whatever. And like, basically he loses that. The like hood pops up and that car's done. And then he turns around, he rams into the back of the Cadillac, and it like goes off the road and lands on the hood, and like gas is spilling out. So he grabs his gun and he starts walking up towards the Cadillac, and they're like in a field full of like cow manure, and someone shoots him. So he gets shot in his arm and his thigh, and he falls down. So he like drags himself back to his car. Lazy gets out and is like, where are you at or whatever. He's like, he's like, God couldn't kill me, blah, 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 that whole thing again. And so Lazy is looking for him, but obviously like he's messed up from the crash too. So his head's spinning, and like all of a sudden Bug is in his car, and he shoots at him while Bug's in the car, but Bug like pulls the car and rams him just like he did that man when he was a kid. And he pins him between the Cadillac and the Duster, and he does exactly what I always say to do in every scary movie. He literally pins him, and then he lets him fall down. He runs over him, he backs over him, and then runs over him again. And I was like, I know that's right. I said, that's how you kill somebody. That's exactly how you kill him. Every scary movie, I'm like, run over him again. Yep. Run over him again. So he's shot and bleeding, like he's in his car. He's bleeding from his arm and his thigh. He looks over to the right, and he sees his dad. His dad's dressed exactly as he was the last time he saw him. He even has the cigarettes hanging out of his shirt pocket. And his dad says, you ready, boy? Come on. And he's like, you're not real. And he starts to hear sirens. And he's like, you're dead and you probably have been for a long time. So he like shifts the car into gear. He closes his eyes and he opens them and his dad's gone. And so he pulls off and he's able to get away before the police show up. So we switch over to the hospital. Kia's walking into Darren's room. She's got like a bear and balloons. And Bo says he's going to make it. And she doesn't like really acknowledge him. And he tells her, you were right. I should have sold the car. And she says, you're never going to sell it. And he says, you're right. I told Booney to crush it. And she's like, what? He's like, yeah, they're probably doing it right now. He says the men that came to the house won't be back. And he says, she tells him, you don't know that. And he says, I do. And she's like, you took care of it. And he says that when his dad left, it hurt him and his mom. But his mom decided to fill that hole he left with hurt. And he decided to make his dad a hero. And he's basically been lying to himself that his dad was a good guy because he loved him. And she says, you're not your daddy. And he says, you're right. I'm worse than my dad because my dad never lied about who he was. He's like, I lie all the time to you. I lie to myself. I thought I could be a part-time outlaw and a part-time dad. He says, but I'm a full-time outlaw. And he's like, I'm an outlaw all the time. And she's basically like, okay, so what do I do with that information? And he almost tells her about Kelvin, but he doesn't. And he says, I can't keep doing this to y'all. And he says Booney's going to take over the garage, and basically he gave him all that platinum to sell, and he'll send the money when he gets settled somewhere else because he's planning on leaving still. And she says, so you're just going to run? And he's like, well, you told me to go. And I said, he better not. So he like goes to the door. He's about to open the door, and she says, so you're just going to take the easy way out? And he's like, there's nothing easy about this. And she's like, I can't make promises about like where you and me stand after the end of all of this. But she's like, if you can stop being a gangster, basically, I won't keep the boys from you. But she's like, if you leave, they're going to hate you all on their own. And she says, do what your dad couldn't, stay, change. And he opens the door and walks out into the hallway. And she says, do you have to go right now, even if you're going to leave? She's like, Javon's on his way up here. And they let him go from the police station. I don't think they're going to charge him. And he comes back in and he's like, are you sure? And she says no, but she just doesn't want to be alone anymore. So he sits like at the side of Darren's bed, and she like lays at the foot of the bed, and she says, you're not going to change, are you? And he just says, I don't think I can. The end. Oh, trauma. Trauma. That was traumatic. That should have been the word. Devastating. I'm hurt. Okay. So, what did you rate this?
4.
Yeah. I said 4 too. It, like, again, it was not... it's almost like a black trauma movie. Mm-hmm. It's so sad. I feel like... I mean, because that is that cycle.
Yeah.
Like, and you just can't get out of it. Like, I feel like we see that all the time with, like, people who sell drugs or are in gangs or whatever. And it's not, I mean, some people do. But for the most part, like, most people that are in that situation don't wake up like, I want to be in a gang today. Or, like, I just want to have to sell drugs. But, like, there's a lot of people who have tried, like, the legitimate way. Mm-hmm. And, like, it's just, like, time after time after time. They just get, like, smacked down. And you can't trust people. You get people like Ronnie who just sucked.
And you just have to do what you know. And you know, if that's what you grew up around.
Yeah, like,
you know,
that's what you knew.
Just generational curses. And if you aren't in the mindset or if you don't, in the place in life in which you can break those, then
absolutely
just destined to continue.
Yeah. And it's like nobody like wanted to give him a break. Like he got out of, I mean, he went to juvie, but like even the judge, like, oh, like you went to juvie, like I'm not going to give you your daughter. Like,
right.
Like it's just like no one would like give him a break. And he lives down south in this like racist like area. And it's just like, and like someone was always trying to take advantage. Like we did a car race, like we both did it. Like, and you're just trying to scam me. Like, dang, like I'm trying to do right. I'm like, I'm not just trying to get money to do drugs. Like, I'm trying to pay my bills. I'm trying to take care of my family. And people just, like, are always trying to... And I feel like... I've been saying that, like, for the last month. I feel like people are always trying to get over on me. But, like, it's like, dang. Like, it's just, like, every way you turn. And I get that. Like, a lot of times I say, for, like, situations, like, when the other... Like, I feel like I know lots of people who their dad has died, and a lot of times it is a dad, and their dad actually like may or may not have been like great, but like they get idolized in that position of which they knew them, and then the other parent gets so much flack for being the parent that was there,
having to fill the void, and still be,
so like it's just like hard. I feel like especially like with Black people, like we see that all the time. Like it's just like it's so hard to break that cycle. And one thing I do really like about this book though is that like no one was trying to bring him, none of his people were trying to bring him back in, which is what we see like so much, is that a lot of times when one of us is able to get out, it's hard to maintain those ties with like friends and stuff, because if they're still in that life, they are always trying to bring you back in. And I do like in this book that was not the case. It was not his family and friends that have those connections that were trying to drag him back in. It was Ronnie, like this other guy who he should have just trusted his gut.
Who he knew was trouble.
Yeah, like knew.
But his family, his people, had his back.
Yeah.
There was no toxicity
at all
within his circle.
Yeah. And that's so good. And it's so like, oh, Kelvin, like that is so sad. I mean, he just literally like wanted to like they were just like best, but like cousins and like brothers. And that was so sad. Just like he was just there helping. Like he didn't have no part of this. He didn't owe nobody. They don't even know his name. He wasn't even involved. And like every time he was there, like to be like his guy, like, and it was just like, now he's dead. And like, I would hope that he wouldn't leave, but that's just so hard. But like, I do think leaving would be the worst choice. I mean, you have kids.
Right. And I feel like, if he leaves rather than trying to repair,
his son is like already
going down that path.
He's just going to be even more angry, because that's what that is. And I just like, I definitely think leaving would be worse. But he does have, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why he feels like he can't change. I don't know. I feel like he could.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's sad. The trauma. It's traumatic.
So, I wanted to, something that I wanted to point out. So is this the first essay Cosby?
Yes.
Okay. So, this is my third. I really enjoyed this one. So prior to this, I read All the Sinners Bleed, which is a really good one. Not my favorite out of the three that I've read so far. I think that this one would be my number 2. And then number 1 is Razor Blade Tears, which I love so much. I mean, it has a moment, but it is very like fast paced, like this, very tense, very dad's breaking kneecaps, and like
we love that.
So like a central like theme like I've found within his books, especially Razor Blade Tears and this one, because they felt so similar, like vibe wise. Hold on, I made a note of it. But it touches on prejudices. And I love this one. But hardworking, business-owning Black men.
Yeah.
Like, love that. Shady pasts. Struggling dads. Dads struggling to be the dads that they want to be for their children.
Yeah.
I think that you would really like Razor Blade Tears. One of my favorites.
Yeah, I kind of want my dad to read this, because this reminds me a lot of my dad. So without like, telling all his business or anything, but yeah, like these are, that's the thing. I feel like it's so much, I feel like Black trauma, but it's like, I love these books, but like, it just is like, and it's so like real, like the reality of it. It's just like, I just want you to win. I want them to come out on top. I mean, I know that's not always good writing.
Yeah, no, I think you would really like Razor Blade Tears. We'll have to read that one.
Yes, we will have to do that one.
Oh my gosh, it is so good. Razorblade Tears is like one of my all-time favorite reads.
Yeah,
so
we'll have to do that one.
Like, bury me with that book. Like,
I will make a note that she does want to be buried with that book. Please make a note. Okay.
But yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed this. It was a lot.
Yep. Did you fan cast anybody?
I did not.
Yeah, I was just like I didn't like officially. I was thinking, it's funny that I said that, Remember the Titans. Because at first I was like, okay, I'm thinking Denzel, like, Training Day. But then, like, but not, like, visually. Mm-hmm. But, like, his son, what's his son's name? I think his son would do, like, really good. I'm like, who is, like, this age? What is his name? John something? John David Washington. I was like, oh, I think he would do, like, really well. And then I was like, who would play, like, Ronnie and Reggie? And all I could think of was, like, the, like, sheriff guy from Life. With, yeah, with Martin Lawrence. And, like, that's, like, it's just, like, that for, like, all of these, like hillbilly, like, characters. Like, that is, like, just the same image. Like, they all look exactly the same in my brain. And that was all of them. Like, I was just, like, ugh. But I just know that Ronnie and Reggie's trailer was just... Yeah. Ugh. You couldn't pay me to sit down in there.
Yeah.
Ew. Gross. But, okay. Other things about this one?
I'm going to be thinking about this one for a while, but...
I know. It was good. It really was. I had no idea where it was going. And I almost read the blurb. Because I was like... because at first I was like, is he at a party? Like, in the very first, like, chapter, I'm like, what is going on here? And I was like, okay, just keep going. Sometimes I'm like, I almost want to read the blurb. I'm like, but now I feel like I have this thing that I have to stick to where I don't read the blurb. So, like, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to read the blurb. Because I was like, what is this? So I just, like, I stuck it out and I didn't do it. So. Yeah.
So when you initially, when you reached out asking what, books we should do, and I initially was going to say Razorblade Tears, but I was like, I already read that. I'm wanting to read some more of his books, so I'll pick a different one. And I asked my mom, I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah, your mom said this was good. Yeah, she did.
I said Blacktop Wasteland or My Darkest Prayer, and she said Blacktop Wasteland, so.
Okay. Yep. No, I like it. You're not going to learn it? Well, she'll listen. I like it. So, we were wrong. So, ACOWAR's not next. So.
Oh, is it not?
No. So, our next book, so we're going into Black History Month. So, except for A Court of Wings and Ruin, because we're kind of like in that series right now. All the rest of our authors are Black authors for the next month. And so, the next one is There's No Way I'd Die First by Lisa Springer. So, that's a thriller. Yes.
It's kind of a horror thriller. Oh. More on the thriller side than horror. Horror as in, like, slasher. So, I feel like there's a difference between, like, the slasher horror and, like, the, like, monsters and...
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
Psychological horror.
They all have their categories. Their genres. Yeah. So that is actually next, and then we'll do A Court of Wings and Ruin. Okay. So, yeah. So There's No Way I'd Die First by Lisa Springer is our next episode. So, if you want to read along, that's next. And then if you're not already, make sure that you are following us on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, but I haven't posted again because I cannot get my life together. But all of those things, if you look Booktrospective up, then that is us on all those platforms. Please, please, please get your friends to listen to an episode and rate and review and leave us comments and suggestions and feedback, because we have to get ready to do our March books now that we're going into February.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, let us know what you want us to read.
Yeah, you're listening. What do you want to hear? I think that's it. You got anything?
No, that's all.
All right. Bye.